Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. These second coming quotes keep coming and they're accelerating and they're becoming more and more serious, I feel. And here's the next one. There's a new article on Church News called Make Living the Doctrine of Christ Your Highest Priority, says Bishop Douglas at MTC. So here's another one for my spreadsheet for second coming quotes. We'll get to this in just a second. Really quick, I want to share something really interesting that happened today. My wife and I and our son and one of our daughters and her friend, we went to Adam-ondi-Ahman. And as we were walking on the trail to White's Ferry, my wife saw this wooden plaque that was nailed to a tree. And I'll tell you what, I've walked down this trail, I don't know how many times. Somewhere between 6 to 12 times, maybe. And I'd never seen this plaque. And so we took a closer look at it, and it says Eliza R. Snow Smith, 1804, 1887. And then I presume that this is a quote from her. It says, "I will go forward. I will smile at the rage of the tempest and ride fearlessly and triumphantly across the boisterous ocean of circumstance. And the testimony of Jesus will light the lamp that will guide my vision through the portals of immortality and communicate to my understanding the glories of the celestial kingdom." And as we were walking down the trail, some of the missionaries came by in their Polaris or Gator or whatever it was, and they were giving a tour to some people. And I pointed this out, and at least that missionary, he had never seen this either. And as you can see, this has been there for a while. This is not, well, I mean, it's pretty worn, so I'm guessing that it's been there for a while. But in case you want to go see it, here's my map for church sites. The link is in the description box of each video. Here's the entrance to Adam-ondi-Ahman. You turn right toward Tower Hill, takes you this way. Here's the valley of Adam-ondi-Ahman, this long strip of land right here. And then you park right here by the bathrooms. You walk down the trail past the Tower Hill marker and the second cabin of Lyman White. You go past Preacher's Rock and turn right. And you follow this trail. This takes you all the way to White's Ferry. And at this point, where you see this other trail that comes down from Spring Hill, there's a trail right here that cuts through these trees. Just a little bit south of it, on the west side of the road, is where you find this plaque. And it's just on a random tree. So I would encourage you to visit Adam-ondi-Ahman, especially if you live here in this area. I would go there regularly. I mean, go to the temple more. But it's not a bad idea to go to these sacred sites to feel the spirit and have spiritual experiences and pray and meditate and things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, back to the article. This is by Joel Randall. Provo, Utah. Speaking to a congregation of new yet eager training missionaries, Bishop Sean Douglas invited them to, quote, "recognize the majesty of your divine commission and the importance of your calling. You're working for the Savior now. How great is that?" End quote. In a February 24th devotional at the Provo Missionary Training Center, Bishop Douglas, second counselor in the presiding bishopric, reinforced the Lord's promise that "I am with you always," from Matthew 28:20. This word right here, majesty, it makes me think of President Nelson's second to last talk in the October 2024 General Conference called "The Lord Jesus Christ Will Come Again." Now is the time for you and for me to prepare for the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Toward the beginning of the talk, he says this, "My dear brothers and sisters, do you see what is happening right before our eyes? I pray that we will not miss the majesty of this moment. The Lord is indeed hastening his work." These are old highlights. I'm just going to skip down to this part. These blessings also help to prepare a people who will help prepare the world for the second coming of the Lord. And I do believe that's what Bishop Sean Douglas has in mind when he says the majesty of your divine commission. I mean, of course, you could use that in reference to missionary work, but look at what he says next. Quote, as prophesied, the Lord is hastening his work today in miraculous ways, and we get to be part of it. The Lord has called for all worthy and willing hands to be on deck. So we have a mention of the hastening. And of course, whenever we're talking about the hastening, we're talking about the second coming. We're talking about getting ourselves and getting the world ready in time for when Christ comes. We're the ones that have to be ready. I have quotes that talk about the fact that the second coming is going to be at an appointed time. It's a fixed date. It's not dependent on our righteousness. It's not dependent on wickedness or anything like that, although it will be during a day of wickedness, speaking of the world in general. So we have to hurry. We have to hasten. And he says there's miracles taking place right now, and it's an all hands on deck moment. And that stuck out to me because I've used this phrase numerous times on this channel, specifically on this spreadsheet. Well, this spreadsheet as well as this one. This one is called Timeline Missionary Work. This one is called Timeline Preparing the Church for the Second Coming. This one's a list of pretty much all the big changes that have been taking place since President Nelson became president of the church in 2018. But this one is narrowed down to missionary work and significant developments in missionary work. And I decided to add column I. Okay. I don't have a name for this column, but we're going to pay attention to these ones that I have highlighted in this like reddish pink color. If it has that color inside of it, it says all hands on deck. So look what's been going on. And of course, this is just my opinion, but let's zoom in. So in my opinion, it kind of started in 2012 with the lowering of the mission age under President Monson. All hands on deck. When I'm saying all hands on deck, I'm talking about we need all available people and as soon as possible to be missionaries. We need all hands on deck. We need more missionaries. That's what it is. So the lowering of the mission age, which resulted in this surge right here of missionaries in 2013 and 2014, with a peak in 2014 with 85,147 full-time teaching missionaries. And then I've added a couple things to the spreadsheet. The first one is this. This is the best information that I have. The Service Missionary Program began testing in 2014. Now, this is in reference to young service missionaries, not senior missionaries who, my understanding is that there's been service missions for a while. Of course, you have all the different types of missions for senior missionaries, but this is referring to young service missionaries. According to this article, which we're going to look at in just a minute, it seems like testing began in 2014. All hands on deck. So essentially, even though they're not full-time teaching missionaries, they can still spread the gospel and bring people to Christ as they serve. So it's all hands on deck. Okay, you can't be a full-time teaching missionary. Well, the Lord can use you in this way to forward his work, and they do. Okay, 2018, during the worldwide youth devotional for youth called Hope of Israel, President Nelson introduced the concept of the Lord's Youth Battalion. So it was an all hands on deck moment where that was kind of like his first call for the youth to be part of the Lord's Youth Battalion and bring others to Christ. It was all about the gathering of Israel. Okay. And then January 2nd, 2019, the Service Missionary Program expanded to all the United States and Canada. All applicants are first considered for full-time proselyting missions. And then if they can't, then they become service missionaries. So I think that this was a key date in when it really, really came online, I think, from what I'm reading here. We're going to look at some of these articles in just a second. All hands on deck. May 6, 2021, based on area presidency direction and approval, eligible members of the church anywhere in the world may now be considered for a senior service mission, according to a letter from the First Presidency. Previously, senior service mission assignments were only available to those living in the United States, Canada, and a limited number of other areas. So all hands on deck. And then in a really key moment, I think this was the April, I should add this on here. I think this was the April 2022 General Conference. President Nelson made a request in General Conference for more missionaries. And there were a number of talks, aside from his, that talked about the importance of serving a mission and the blessings that come from serving a mission. That General Conference was focused on the need for more missionaries. And I have quotes talking about the fact that that they've responded. There's another missionary surge going on right now. You can see it right here. The last number that I have for full-time teaching missionaries was from 2024, 74,127. And then, excuse me, then over here, I have these numbers that have been reported for total number of missionaries. I wish I had this number more complete as you go back in time, but this is what I have to work with at the moment. Okay. And then I'll just point out we've back in 2024, the creation of 36 new missions. At that point, it was the highest number of new missions in the history of the church, which has already been surpassed, as you'll see in a second. November 1st, 2024, single men 40 and over can now serve as senior missionaries. All hands on deck. And then now, October 24th of 2025, so now President Oaks is president of the church, he lowered the mission age for women from 19 to 18. All hands on deck. And then July, this upcoming July, the Utah Salt Lake City Temple Square mission is going to be discontinued, meaning there are still going to be sister missionaries that serve on Temple Square, but that's not going to be their mission. They're going to come from the surrounding missions in that area. So they're going to spend a part of their time at Temple Square, but they're more needed as full-time teaching missionaries in the surrounding area. So again, even though it's kind of small, it's significant. It's another sign of all hands on deck. And then also in July, starting on July 1st, there's going to be 55 new missions created. That blows away that previous record of 36. 55. And I'm excited because one of them is going to be here in the Kansas City area. In fact, it's going to be called the Missouri-Kansas City Mission. It's going to split off from the Missouri Independence Mission. So there's a lot of things going on right now. This is something to take note of. From my point of view, unless I'm missing other milestones, it seems like this kind of started in 2012, which was a significant year. That was the year of the Mormon moment. That's the year that the Book of Mormon musical was really big. That's when there was the I'm a Mormon campaign. That's when Mitt Romney was running for president. And I also feel, I know I'm partial to this area now because I live here, but that's also the year that the Kansas City Temple was dedicated. That was a big year. On top of all that, the lowering of the mission age. And it seems like that year kicked off a series of events that have led to all hands on deck. So just as a reminder, he said As was prophesied, the Lord is hastening his work today in miraculous ways, and we get to be part of it. The Lord has called for all worthy and willing hands to be on deck. He is not kidding. He's not kidding. So I've added this to my spreadsheet called Quotes Second Coming for February. Geez, that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have a sixth one to add. It's the last video that I did about Elder Anderson's devotional at BYU, Idaho, which is definitely, in my mind, a final phase quote. I feel like it's one of the biggest hints that we're in that time of the second coming, and that Christ, that his appearance, that his coming is imminent. Because he pointed out all the times recently that general authorities have talked about the parable of the 10 virgins. He that was a big part of his talk. He's like, you guys, if something keeps getting repeated over and over again, there's the law of witnesses, and that's something that should rivet our attention. In a very kind way, he was telling us we're being given like the biggest hint that could be given when it comes to the second coming. Okay, now I have just a couple more things. I want to talk about these service missionaries, and then I want to talk about the compression of events that Elder Maxwell talked about, because I feel like that's exactly what we're seeing here. So we're going back to this newsroom article from November 16th, 2018. Church announces changes to recommendation process for young missionaries. And please, if I'm missing something here, please clarify it. Please fill me in the comments section. But this is my current understanding based on what I'm about to read to you. Beginning January 2nd, 2019, all young men and women in the United States and Canada, including those who may not be able to serve a proselyting mission due to health reasons, will use the same online recommendation process. They will complete recommendation forms, participate in interviews with their local church leaders, and undergo evaluations by medical professionals. Candidates will then receive a call from the president of the church to serve either a proselyting or service mission. The service missionary program has been tested in various locations since 2014 and recently expanded to the entire United States and Canada. So that's where I got that date from. Since 2014 is when they've been testing this. And then there's another article that sheds some more light. This is Church News. Church announces major changes for young adult missionary recommendation process. Missionary candidates don't get to pick their type of mission. Mission assignments are made under priesthood keys by prophets and apostles based on the information provided in the application, which includes various evaluations. During the recommendation process, all candidates will be considered first for full-time proselyting missions. Those unable to be called as proselyting missionaries for physical, mental, or emotional reasons may be called as service missionaries. In some cases, candidates will be honorably excused from any formal missionary service. And then it says here in this caption for this picture, beginning January 2019, young service missionaries will be called service missionaries. The service missionary program, which has been available in the United States and Canada for about 10 years, makes it possible for worthy young adults who for various reasons have been excused from serving a proselyting mission to still serve a mission. So this says for about 10 years, and this article was also written in 2018. So if it was 10 years, that would take you back to 2008, whereas this article said it's been tested since 2014. So I don't know. I don't really know. If you do, let me know. I'll update the spreadsheet. Okay, to finish off this video, and as we think about all these changes that have happened to missionary work in this like all hands on deck situation that's been unfolding since 2012, I think about this. I'm going to read all three of these quotes from Elder Neil A. Maxwell. This on my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z, currently row 118 for compression of events. I have one from President Spencer W. Kimball, but in his quote, he's talking about the first 150 years of the church, so it's not really applicable to what we're talking about right now. Elder Maxwell talks about the future compression of events. So this one is from the April 1987 General Conference, and he says, "We surely have been warned and forewarned about our time, a period in which the compression of challenges may make a year seem like a decade." And if there ever was a year that felt like that, for me, it was 2020. And then that, like on a world scale, I think you could say 2020 matches that description. And then for me personally, 2023 was an awful year with lots of personal challenges. Continuing, members will be cleverly mocked and scorned by those in the great and spacious building representing the pride of the world. No matter, for ere long, he who was raised on the third day will raise that spacious but third-class hotel. Okay. And then we have this one. This is from April 1988 General Conference. He said, "Some prophecies, such as the return of Jewish people to Israel, were decades in their fulfillment. Other prophecies can be fulfilled in a compressed period of time. Taking the restored gospel for a witness to all the nations of the world involves generations, but a desolating scourge can cover the land quickly. Sadly, more than one qualifying possibility already exists for such scourges. The blossoming of the desert as the rose involved substantial time, yet significant moral decay can happen within a single generation, whether in a nation or in a family." But then this one is probably the most applicable one to what we're talking about. April 1992 General Conference. "Now, my brethren, these are your days in the history of the church. Mark well what kind of days they will be. Days when, with special visibility, the Lord will make bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations. God will also hasten his work. He will also shorten the last days for the elect's sake. Hence, there will be a compression of events." And there it is right there. I feel like some of those events involve all these changes to missionary work, which has made it an all hands on deck situation since 2012. This has definitely, I think, been a compression of events. I was really surprised. I was very surprised when the mission age was lowered for women, because for my whole life, they couldn't go on missions until an older age than men. At the time that I went on my mission, men could go at 19 and then women could go at 21. And so now both of them down to 18 years old, that blew my mind. A compression of events, all hands on deck. All right, continuing. "Furthermore, all things shall be in commotion. Only those in the process of becoming the men and women of Christ will be able to keep their spiritual balance. Brethren, may we walk by faith, and if necessary, even on our knees." Yeah, so we're living in special times. Things are accelerating. One word that comes up over and over and over again in these second coming quotes is the word hasten and hastening. We've also seen a lot of the word acceleration. Things are picking up. We're getting more and more on the nose quotes about the second coming. We've had a number of what I classify as final phase quotes since President Oaks became president of the church. So I'm excited. Again, if you get a chance, go to Adam-ondi-Ahman, or wherever you live in the world. If you have a church site near you, make sure to go visit it. Even if it's a smaller one, you will feel the spirit if you go. There's a special spirit at these sites. There's lots of them in Utah, but they're not just in Utah. They're not just in Missouri and Illinois. Go to, there's a website called Historical Marker Database. Go to this website, and one way that you can do it is up here. Search for the word Mormon. Okay, search. And then at the top left, click on Map All. And it'll show you all the historical markers in this database across the United States. And they're all over. Look, Arkansas. In fact, I want to go to these ones here in Arkansas. One of these is the burial site of Parley P. Pratt. But look, Tennessee, there's one in Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia. They're all over. So if you think that they're just in Utah, in Missouri, and, the Midwest, you're wrong. Look at, geez Louise, look at Arizona. Look at Arizona. Look at California, Southern California, Central California. My goodness, they're all over. So I would encourage you to do that. It's a really good family activity. If you're in Missouri or coming to Missouri, or not even just Missouri, but I'm starting to work on Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska. Let me zoom out. These are the ones that I have so far on my map. I have a map, and I also have a spreadsheet. The link is in the description box of each video. But I would use this when you plan your trip to Missouri, because there's so many more sites to see. They're smaller sites, but there's so many more sites to see than what people realize. And one of my favorite ones, it's a little bit out of the way, but it's this one right here. Release of Joseph and Hiram Smith. It's where they were allowed to escape, and then they went on to Nauvoo from this point when they escaped custody. But there's other ones. I love this one, the Battle of Crooked River. There's also, let's see, there's a bunch in Richmond that I don't think people really know about. People know about the Pioneer Cemetery. They know about David Whitmer's grave. But there's all these ones here in the center of the city, not the least of which is the site where Joseph Smith was jailed. Oh, I thought I had a picture of it. I guess not. I do have pictures of it. I just haven't added it to the map. David Whitmer's home site. Here's another jail site right here, the Ray County jail site. And it talks about everybody that was jailed and which jail they were. There were 3 jail sites. There's just so much. There's so much to see. There's one that I wanted to show you really quick. There's Hans Mill. This is one that I really like. North of Hans Mill, in a small town called Breckenridge. It's not too far away, but north of Hans Mill, they have a millstone from Hans Mill in the city park that you can go see. And then this memorial with these different plaques and headstone things. Over at Far West, there's not just the Far West Temple site. There's also the Eminence. It's on private property, but they have it open to where you can drive in and see this sign. This is where Joseph Smith was arrested in Missouri. You also have a little bit north on the same road, you have the Charles C. Rich cabin. He was an apostle, and it's the only surviving structure from the Far West period. Yeah, it just got dedicated last year. I have that documented on my other channel called Explore Church Sites. But there's a new statue that was unveiled. There's a lot to see, guys. There's a lot to see. And it is worth hunting these down. It's a great family activity. You feel accomplished having kind of checked off these different sites on your list of places that you've been. So make sure to do it. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.